Very good. So good evening. So I'm glad to see you again this week. So another week has gone by. So it really time flies. Well, last week so I speak mainly about demonic obsession. So this is when demons they attack a person's mind in a very persistent way. So the attack usually comes through the thoughts, so disturbing ideas or images or impulses that keep repeating over and over. Now, one of the tactics is to get the person stuck on one particular thing, one single thing, or one particular ideas. So perhaps it's an event, a particular image, or a particular feeling. So they trap the mind by narrowing the perspective, and then stir up emotions like fear or anger, which eventually wears down the person's peace. Now, you might be thinking, well, isn't that pretty common, isn't it? Because a lot, I would say, a lot of people they cannot let go of something painful from the past. So maybe it is a failure, they cannot forget, or something hurtful, hurtful that people they said to them, they cannot forget that, they cannot let go. And sometimes the wound is actually quite trivial, but the thought just keeps coming back and coming back, and so it robs them of their joy. And I think this is not something rare to see. It is quite common that people they experience this problem. Well, I think that's what we that's why we need to make an important distinction here. Sometimes kind of obsession comes from natural psychological causes, but the other times it is from demonic influence. So the big question is, so how do we tell the difference between the two? Well, I think the main difference lies in the cause. So psychological obsession often stems from natural causes, such as, for example, trauma or depression or anxiety or stress or habitual rumination. So that when somebody just persistently focuses on negative thoughts, feelings, or past experiences, and often without reaching a resolution. And so for example, someone who has experienced a painful betrayal may find themselves replaying the events repeatedly in their mind, unable to let it go. So the key feature of psychological obsession is that it grows gradually, usually triggered by life experiences or environmental factors. So it becomes reinforced through repeated focus. And it is true that obsession can be very upsetting, and so that they often come from the ordinary way our mind works. So where repeated negative thoughts form these strong habits in the brain, so we cannot let it go. So, and over time, this can lead to anxiety disorders, depression, obsessive compulsive tendencies, etc., etc. So, in other words, it keeps growing stronger, not an experience, just come all of a sudden. And the other thing is that psychological obsession usually respond to natural interventions, such as therapies, medications, or discipline mental practices, etc. So, but however, diabolical obsession is fundamentally different in origin because it arises from the direct influence of a demon or a devil, of the evil spirit. And so unlike psychological obsession, it is not primarily caused by trauma or personal habits, those kind of things. Although these can open the door to demonic influence, but it's not often the case. It's not necessarily the case. But the driving force here of demonic obsession is rather supernatural. So, and also they are often very intense, overwhelming, resistant to ordinary psychological therapies or techniques. So, and I think the key characteristic is that so they may appear suddenly, sometimes triggered by a single cursed event or object, such as, for example, when someone has gone to maybe involved in channeling, so invoking the devil, calling the devil to things like that. Those I was shortly after that incident, so if they start to have experience this obsessive thoughts, so that can we so with there might be, that might be maybe it's a demonic cause. So you see in all these cases, so the demonic force implants persistent, disturbing thoughts directly into the person's mind. So the obsession then continues with continuously, and often without any external trigger, and may only be lifted through spiritual interventions, so such as deliverance prayers or exorcisms, things like that. So there is no medication, there is no psychological therapies can help demonic obsession. Even sometimes people, they suggest that there is, but in reality there is not. There is no solution. There is no solution. The solution is not just to read a book, or just go to see a psychiatrist. It's not. It's from demonic obsession. So it's for, you have to see a priest. Now, perhaps many people, they might think that, they might ask, is it possible for both psychological and diabolical obsession to coexist in the same person? Well, the answer is yes, it can. And in fact, some exorcists, they often mention that pre-existing psychological issues such as anxiety or depression can make a person more vulnerable to demonic influence, because these issues weaken a person's resilience, focus, and the sense of hope. So when the person feels overwhelmed, or feels isolated, or feel trapped in negative thoughts, so they might be more likely to believe the lies, the deceptions of the demons, and give in to discouragement, despair, or unhealthy coping habits. So, like such as drinking or drugs or addictions and all these things, all these kind of things. So, and of course, this doesn't mean that psychological issue itself is demonic. I'm not saying that mental illness are just demonic. No, I'm not saying that. But the weakened state of a person can create openings where the demonic influence more easily takes hold. Just like a physical illness can make the body more susceptible to infection. So when our immune system is weak, so the germs will easily attack us. And so it is the same thing here. So the psychological obsession provides a fertile ground for the demonic influence to take root. And so the demons, they just amplifies the person's existing struggles, making the obsessions more entrenched and harder to escape. And so this blending between psychological and diabolical creates a cycle in which the natural and the supernatural, they reinforce each other, intensifying the individual's suffering. So for this reason, so the effective treatments, often they require a combination of approaches. So basically, it's mental health care to address the psychological component, and the spiritual intervention is to confront the demonic influence. So the exorcists, so they often they need to have both the knowledge of psychology and demonology in order to help the person, to help the people who are afflicted. So they need to know their psychology, besides knowing their spirituality. Now, and so this is important. So we have to see that there's a natural cause and there's a supernatural cause, and we cannot use the supernatural means to deal with just natural thing. So it's not, you just keep praying. If someone is just a natural, it's a natural cause, you keep praying, it will not work effectively. Okay, so now, of course, so now remember that what I said in the past. So oppression is when the demons, they attack from the outside, and obsession is when the mind is attacked from within. But however, there is a more severe form of attack called demonic possession. A demonic possession, so both the Gospels and the history of the church, they make it very clear that fallen angels are indeed capable of possessing human beings. So to deny this reality is just to reject not only the testimony of Christ himself, who cast out demons on numerous occasions, but also the consistent witness of Catholic traditions. So from the saints, from the mystics, from the exorcists throughout the centuries. And so to ignore this also is a problematic, so we have to deal with it seriously. So the problem we have today is that many modern rationalist thinking tries to reduce possession to just psychological or medical explanations. So dismissing the supernatural, the preternatural elements entirely. But however, the Catholic Church, grounded in scripture and in centuries of concrete experience, affirms the reality of possession without doubt. And so with that formation, so today we will just take a look more closely at what possession is and how it actually works. And so I will try not to make it too scary for all of you. Now, demonic possession, again, so refers to an extraordinary form of diabolical influence, which means that something is rare, doesn't happen to everyone, doesn't happen to in everyday life. You don't see it very often happens. So in this diabolical influence in which a demon takes control over a person's body, not their soul, just only the body. So it's called possession. Now here it is important to stress that the demon never owns the person. So people belong to God, and God is always in charge. The word possession, is only used analogically. So it means basically it means domination or occupancy rather than ownership. So in possession, so the demons temporarily usurps the body and exercising powers over its functions. But it can never truly possess the essence of the human person, because it cannot attack basically it cannot possess the soul. It's only the body takes over the body, not taking over the soul. The soul is the essence of human person. It's a substantial form of the person, of the human. So therefore, possession does not mean that a person ceases to be themselves or loses their soul to the devil, as some people or movies suggest. Demons cannot own or merge with a human being the way the soul unites the body. Now, St. Thomas actually explains this very clearly. So he says that since demons are pure spirits and their influence on the human body is external rather than essential, so they can make the body do things it wouldn't normally do, like strange movements or unusual strength or voices or knowing hidden things, all these things. But they cannot directly control the mind and the soul. Now, so the presence always takes over and feeds off the person. It is never a real friendship or a real union, a true union. And St. Thomas explains this as he called this as an accidental union, where the demon dominates the body without actually becoming part of the person. And so this is to tell us that in possession, so the possessed person's free will is not taken, because it's not taken away. So which means, in other words, even when the demons exert control, the faculties of intellect and will remain untouched. Although in many cases they may be clouded, they may be suppressed, but never taken away. So in possession, so a demon can take invasive control over the body, the speech, the actions, but always within strict boundaries. So in other words, their influence is always respectful to human freedom. They cannot force someone to commit a sin. It is all up to the person's will to choose. And this is why, individuals who are possessed are still morally responsible persons before God and never lose their identity and dignity. So in possession, sometimes, demons, they claim that they have a right to remain in the possessed person. But in reality, it is always false. It's not the case. They stay only because God, in his providence, allows it for a time. And this is to say that this permission is not ownership. It is more like a temporary allowance granted within strict limits. God alone remains the Lord of the human person. And his authority sets the boundaries of what a demon can and cannot do. And so, as I already explained in the past, I think in the first lesson. Now, so we can see, because possession is just a usurpation, and so therefore the church, through the priests acting in Christ's name, has the authority to command the demon to depart. Exorcism is not a magical ritual. Just saying some words over afflicted person and then the demon just gone. It's not like that. But it is a juridical act of Christ's power exercised through his church. So the demon actually recognizes this authority and they obey, even if it resists at first. But at the end, they have to obey because this is from God. So the exorcist is acting in the name of God, in the name of the church, and given the authority by the church. And so it's worked. God works through this person, this priest, into drive out demon. So the demon recognizes this authority. So the right of exorcism basically is to restore the affected person to freedom and returning full control of their body to them and reasserting the truth that they belong to God alone. They have no right in the person, in the body of the person. So the demons have no right in the body of the person. So that's why the exorcist at the end, they just proclaim that this person, you have no right in him or in her. And so you have to get out. Now, today many people, they think that demonic possession only happens to those involved in the occult or morally evil individuals. But in reality, it is not true, because possession doesn't mean that God has abandoned someone. And in fact, the very fact that he allows it, even in a very limited way, shows that he remains fully in control and that everything happens according to his plan. And so in possession, as I explained just now, so even when afflicted, the person retains their dignity and freedom at the level of the soul. So their intellect, their will remain free, although they might be obscured or challenged by the demonic influence. And in fact, based on the testimonies of the exorcists, many possessed individuals are still able to live with a measure of stability. So, for example, they can work, they can go to work, they can go to work, they can interact with people normally. Even sometimes they can even pray, appear as praying at least, because God doesn't permit the demon to completely overwhelm their life. And so we will talk about that later. It's called partial possession. So who can possess? Well, who can possess? Well, the spiritual writers and the exorcists, they agree that only certain beings, so fallen angels or demons, are capable of true possession. Good angels never possess a person. They can appear as a human form. They can inspire people, not to possess people. So they cannot possess. Now, many spiritual writers, they mention that not every demon is permitted to possess. Only certain demons, they are allowed to possess people, such as Satan or some other names that are mentioned in the Bible. So they are observed to act in this way at times because the actual exorcists they have seen that before, or sometimes some demons they only maybe perhaps just possess one person and that's it. They cannot possess other people. Or some they are known only through the practical experience of exorcists, basically. So, and regardless of their power or familiarity, no demons can act beyond what God allows. Again, and so it is true that sometimes possession may correspond to the afflicted person's sin. For instance, for example, a spirit of pride affecting someone who struggles with pride. But however, this is not always the case. So normally a demon's influence has no direct connection to the person's moral failings and may even serve higher purposes, such as sanctification or a demonstration of God's power, etc. So the person is possessed is basically is to purify is a sign of, is a way of purification. It's a sign of it's also as a period as a trial, so that the person can be even more can be holier, things like that. So it can happen, or it's just to purely just to demonstrate God's power is more powerful than the demons. Now, so in addition to demons, some exorcists they also report some cases, where the spirit in question does not seem demonic but human. So these entities they often claim that to be the souls of people who die in mortal sin. They are called the damned souls. So unlike ordinary demonic possessions, so where fallen angels invade a person to take over the person, these cases, such raise the difficult question. So, can a human soul, after they pass this life, after death, possess or influence the living? That is the question. There's a debate. It's not settled yet. The debate is this debate is not settled yet. So because some exorcists they from experience they said, well, they believe that it is possible, because they point out that, well, where these spirits are commanded in the name of Christ, they consistently claim to be human souls. Every time when they, even though the exorcists they command them to live in the name of Christ, and they consistently claim that they are human souls, not demons. And unlike demons, who under the authority of Christ cannot lie, So and these the spirits seem, and also these spirits they seem weaker, not not so aggressive, and more tied to specific earthly sins. They mentioned that it's like anger, lust, greed, all these sins. So not some higher pure spiritual sins, like pride, the kind of things. So rather than the spiritual pride of demons. So, and they also seem to act only together with demons, never on their own, and so they are much easier to expel. But others, exorcists, they strongly disagree with this approach. They said, well, it is not possible for human persons the human soul to possess another person. So basically, they argue that every such case is simply just a trick of the devil. And according to the church guidelines, demons can imitate the voices or personalities or knowledge of deceased people in order to confuse the living. And so from this view, it is never really a human soul, but just only the demons they are pretending. So this debate then it's just just to keep it perhaps just to explain it clearly, is that this debate basically this one side is saying that, well, God could allow them souls, these departed souls, to act in a limited way, just as He allows saints in heaven to intervene for the good. But the other side says, well, this is impossible, just impossible. Every case is just another deception from the devil. So, in practice, exorcists who report such cases often notice that these so-called human spirits are weaker, less violent, and more earthly in their things. And so they always with demons who are not the main, always with demons who are in the main force. So it's not, they are not working alone. So this is what they reckon. They reckon the same principle applies to the souls in purgatory. So they cannot possess the living. So in fact, the ritual, the Roman ritual, the Rituale Romanum, the Roman ritual, where the rite of exorcism is found. So also the consistent teachings of the church warn that if during an exorcism, so a spirit they claim to be a deceased soul, this claim should never be trusted. So because demons are deceivers, they are very cunning, and they can easily imitate the voice, the knowledge, the personalities of the dead. However, unlike demons, souls in purgatory, they are not free to leave purgatory. They are in the state of purification, so they do not just wander around the world freely, nor do they have the power to control bodies or minds. So basically, the exorcist said that the souls in purgatory, they cannot possess the living. But their condition, so the souls in purgatory, their condition is often described by the theologians as a prison of purification. So where they must endure suffering until they are fully cleansed and ready to enter heaven. And so because of this, they lack the freedom to manipulate the living directly. So whether they are permitted to appear, it is always by God's allowance, and for one reason only. For example, they are allowed to come back to this world, to appear to people. Is perhaps they request prayers to be said, or masses to be offered, or a sacrifice to be offered, just to lessen their time of purification. So it happens. So, and such appearances, they are external, just only through dreams or visions or other signs, never just forms of possession. They would not possess a person to tell you this kind of things. And for this reason, so any alleged possession, by a soul in purgatory is either a demonic trick or a misunderstanding of natural phenomena, such as dreams or psychological experiences. God provides all that is needed for the faithful to help the souls in purgatory through intercession, especially prayers, the mass, almsgiving, indulgences, those things. So their influence is always oriented towards salvation and never domination. Now, so demonic possession can be classified into two types, in general. So what I said just now, I said partial possession and full possession. So just based on how much control the demon has over the individual, just based on this, to determine whether it's partial or full. The partial possession occurs when the demon controls only certain aspects of the person's body, mind, or faculties, or manifests only at a specific time. So the person may retain a period of lucidity, functioning normally between episodes of demonic control. And so, as I said, they can work, they can go to work, they can talk to people normally, but sometimes they are possessed. So during those moments, the individual might still exercise some control over their actions. So when they're normal, they can still exercise some control over their actions or thoughts, and the demon's influence may. So in this case, the demon's influence may fluctuate. So partial possession can be very subtle, as you can imagine, because people, most of the time, they are normal people. You cannot really tell that they're possessed. And the demon may appear, only during crisis or exorcism sessions or certain triggers. So, but they are in general, they are just normal people. So, and so that's why it's hard to tell. And so later we'll talk, explain that how the exorcists, they can identify people they are possessed. Now, full possession, however, on the other hand, involves continuous control of the person's entire being. So the demon may imitate the person's personality so convincingly that it can be difficult to detect at first. So typically, full possession requires some form of susceptibility or unconscious consent on the part of the individual. So such as pride or habitual sins or psychological vulnerability, as I mentioned just now, depression or anxiety, those kind of things, which allows the demons to gain complete control. So in this case, in these cases, the person rarely experiences periods of lucidity. So their behavior may show clear signs of external domination, which I will explain to you in a few minutes. Now, possession can occur in different ways. It is true that it is more often involves voluntary susceptibility, as I said just now, where repeated sins or pride or certain psychological tendencies create openings for a demon to enter the body. But however, exorcists, they also caution that possession can happen involuntarily, when a demon takes advantage of weakness and or the past exposure to evil influences or particular vulnerabilities. So they can it happen. But in either case, the demon's control can vary. So partial possession is intermittent, and with the demon taking control at times, while the person functions normally at others. But full possession is continuous. So although the demons may imitate the person's natural behavior to hide its presence, but because of this, so careful observation of the secondary signs, is essential for exorcists to detect hidden influences. And this what secondary sign or primary signs, what are they? I will explain it later. I will explain this later. So they have to observe what we call secondary signs, to in order to detect this hidden influence. Now, understand this distinction is crucial for exorcists because knowing whether possession is partial or full, voluntary or involuntary, actually helps determine the approach and determines the approach and the intensity of the exorcism sessions. So sometimes the person will have brief, clear moments, and during this time, so the hidden demonic influence can become obvious, and so these glimpses, actually let the exorcist work more effectively and stop any lasting effects. So it helps the person fully take back control of their body, mind, and faculties in the long run. So for an exorcist to exist, for an exorcism to succeed, to be effective. So an experienced exorcist, of course, who has given the faculties from the bishop is important. He has experience is important, but it is equally important that the possessed person actively participate and take responsibility for their own liberation. So they need to engage consistently in prayers, moral discipline, and perseverance. So normally the exorcist will give them a program to do. So in that period of time, they have to focus on their prayers. They have to be disciplined. They have to persevere, not to give up. Even though they keep falling, they should not give up. And so so during the sessions and also in their daily life, so there is a program they have to undergo. So they must learn to distinguish their own thoughts and the emotions from those imposed by the demons. So they have to distinguish these two, from their emotions or actually from the demon. So maintaining clarity and self-control. So during exorcism, so they must also, these people, they must follow the instructions given by exorcists without resistance. So they have to be very honest. They have to be they have to be transparent about their temptations, about their sins, their experiences, and this is essential. Cooperation with prescribed prayers, sacramental, spiritual exercise is also necessary. And so the success of liberation session often depends on the possessed person. So if they do not open up, if they do not open up, or if they let the demon just stay unchecked, or just give up, too easily, the progress is going to be hindered. So ultimately, the key qualities for breaking free from demonic influence are humility, honesty, perseverance, and discernment. These four aspects. So when these are paired with the exorcist prayers and guidance, so the person can fully regain freedom. So spiritually, mentally, and even physically. So, and one way exorcists they identify demonic possession is by observing what I call primary and secondary signs, as I said just now. So, and each type of sign, points to supernatural influence, but only in different ways. Now, the primary signs of possessions are the most important and the definitive indicators that the exorcists they're looking for. So these are phenomena that go beyond what any human being can naturally do. So they are preternatural signs that point to an intellect and will surpassing normal human capacity. So there is not naturally people that can naturally cannot do these things. So primary signs they are considered morally certain evidence of possession because they cannot be explained by natural causes or human ability. So, for example, so including speaking or understanding languages unknown to the person. They have never studied these languages, but they started to speak these kind of languages, or demonstrating knowledge of hidden or distant events that the person could not possibly know, or exhibiting supernatural strength far beyond normal human limits. So when these primary signs they observe, exorcists can reasonably assert that perhaps a demonic presence is at work here. But on the other side, the secondary signs, of possession, they are just their behaviors or manifestations that may suggest possession, but still fall within human capacity. So the human can do it also, but most likely it can be demonic, but at the same time it can also be from a natural cause. So these include, for example, unusual aggression. So suddenly this sudden mood changes, or speaking in strange voices, or violent movements. Although these are abnormal, but often consistent with demonic influence. But these signs, again, these signs alone, they do not prove possession simply because they can be simulated, they can be exaggerated, they can be explained by mental illness or neurological disorders, all these mental illnesses or extreme stress, etc. So, for example, a person with dissociative identity disorder might think in multiple voices, may speak in multiple voices, or think of different. They have different identities. They're different people, they're different persons, or displayed unexpected strength, during episodes, things like that. But this manifestation, again, they are naturally caused because of their mental illness, not supernatural. So secondary signs are therefore just indicators, the indications to investigate further rather than evidence sufficient to declare possession. So primary signs are the most reliable indicators of demonic possession. But exorcists, they must exercise great caution before concluding that a person is truly possessed. One key point is that not every extraordinary phenomenon automatically qualifies as a primary sign. So, for example, someone might display unusual physical strength that seems incredible, but is still within human limits. And this is impressive, but not preternatural, you see. And similarly, a person might demonstrate knowledge of hidden facts or events or foreign language, speaking foreign languages. But if it could have been learned naturally, it cannot be taken as proof of possession. People, they can be smart, they can be they can predict things, and this is not, obviously it may not be from demonic cause, it can be just from a natural cause. So in such cases, the phenomena requires careful investigation rather than immediate action. So that's why the process normally takes for a time, a period of time. It's not a sudden, it's not an immediate action. So when someone just speak to the priest and say, oh, I'm possessed, the priest won't say, okay, let's do the exorcism on you. It can't happen. It will never happen. So there's a very careful investigation that the church has laid out some rules, to how to do this investigation. So every priest should have basic ideas on how this works, and so they would never just to perform exorcism right away. And so over time, repeated or consistent manifestations can evolve into primary signs. So although there's some secondary signs, but if it happens over times, every constantly, of course, then maybe it will evolve into primary signs. So, for example, a person who gradually shows knowledge of things they couldn't possibly know naturally, like intimate secrets of strangers. So may it initially, raise suspicion, but only with sustained evidence does it become a reliable preternatural sign. So the rule emphasizes that the rule actually laid out from the church, laid out by the church, is to emphasize that a solemn exorcism should not proceed without moral certitude. So the exorcists, they must ensure the signs are genuinely supernatural, not fake, not they say what they say they are possessed is not based on what they say. It's what based on the exorcists, they have moral certitude that the person is possessed, and they can do this. And they have to obtain the faculties from the bishop, of course. So they have to have the faculties from the bishop in order to do this exorcism. And so they cannot just say, "Oh, I hear this person said that he is possessed," or "This person just is a strange person." It's not like that. So it is often is it 100% is most likely is from demonic cause. Now, moral certitude is required before performing an exorcism. So moral certitude is what? Is the firm judgment that allows an exorcist to act without reasonable doubt. So there is most likely this person is possessed. So that is it's based on the signs, that is the primary signs. So it is obviously it is not absolutely certain. So the demon the exorcists, they sometimes they are not absolutely certain, but it excludes reasonable skepticism, and so it's called moral certainty. So moral certainty. So most likely is from demonic causes. So to achieve this, so there is a preternatural sign, like for example, you see a person just levitates, or there's a person has possesses superhuman strength, just or they have knowledge of hidden sins, that kind of things. So those must be clearly beyond natural explanation. So a lot of magicians that nowadays they claim that they can levitate, but of course we know that it's false. It's just a trick. So it's for natural cause. It's not, there's no there's not demonic cause. So exorcists do not need to observe every so the exorcists, they have to observe the primary sign, but not every classical primary sign. So even a single clear preternatural manifestation can justify a conclusion of demonic activities. They don't need to have all the signs, in order to perform a exorcism. So if they see there is a clear preternatural manifestation, they already have this is already the requirements already has met, so they don't need to meet all the requirements. But it just have to be very serious. It has to be serious. So it's not just based on the person who says that he's possessed, things like that. But however, so exorcists, they have to they have to be very careful. So they have to be very careful confirming that the phenomenon is truly supernatural and not the result of fraud. So psychological conditions or misinterpretations, things like that. So normally the process will also nowadays especially that will require the person to go to see a psychologist or the psychiatrist first, before they if they say that, well, this is just because it's a natural cause, then sorry, there's no exorcism. But if they say, well, it's most likely, we can't explain it. You can't explain this person. How come this person will experience these things? And so they can go next step. So next time I'll talk more about the step, about the process. How do for the deliverance process. Now, so the exorcists, they have to be very careful. They have to be extremely cautious because they are dealing with the devil. They are dealing with the devil. They will so they and devils are real, not as the storybooks tells us. They are not. Devils are real, and we have to treat it very seriously. So they will not perform an exorcism unless they have moral certainty, knowing that acting without it can be very dangerous, both for the person claiming to be possessed and for the exorcists themselves. So primary signs traditionally group into three main types, three main categories. The first is when a person suddenly speaks or understands a language they have never heard, they have never learned. And this is called xenoglossia. Xenoglossia. Now, as we all know, learning a language normally requires repeated practice or an exposure over time, and something a person cannot acquire instantly. So when someone speaks a language fluently without any prior training, it points to a preternatural or supernatural influence. So speak a language fluently, a person usually needs three things. So the ability to hear, to understand it, and second is the ability to speak it naturally, and third is the ability to write or to compose in it. So each of these skills takes time, takes ability. So it takes time and takes repeated learning and memory formation. So they cannot happen suddenly or after brief exposure. And so therefore, if a possessed person begins to speak, to understand, or to write a language they have never encountered, it suggests the influence of a demon. And this is the first primary sign. So demons by their nature have knowledge of all human languages. They know all the languages because they have knowledge. So they have existed because they have existed alongside human throughout history. And so encountering and retaining every language ever spoken. So this is why during exorcisms, so a demon can suddenly just make the possessed person speak a completely foreign language. And in some cases, the possessed person can also even write in a language they never studied. And here, so the demon temporarily takes control of the person's faculties and producing speech or writing that the individuals cannot understand. So this phenomena can also appear in other ways. So, for example, the possessed person understand what is said in a foreign language and explain it in their own language. So, showing true comprehension rather than simple repetition. And additionally, sometimes automatic writing can occur also. So where the demons actually guides the person's hand to write quickly in a foreign language. And so this writing often looks different from the person's usual handwritings and can happen during or outside the exorcism sessions. And so it is important to differentiate, this form of automatic writing, from the automatic writing in occult practices, where a medium allows a spirit to guide their hands. So in genuine possession, the writing comes directly from the demon, temporarily controlling the person's faculties. So exorcism, so exorcists, they also mention that in some special points, so sometimes God actually limits the demon's ability so that they may be able to write but not speak certain languages, and so they can speak but they cannot write, or they can write but they cannot speak. Sometimes it's like that. So God limits the demon's ability. So demons, they like ancient languages. They don't speak in modern languages. Normally, it's ancient languages, and the languages perhaps even as sacred languages like Latin, Greek, Hebrew, those kind of languages. But they rarely speak them during the sessions because sacred languages are connected to divine truth and they cause demons discomfort. So, but if they use a sacred language, perhaps they may distort it. For example, by using a Protestant style pronunciation of Latin, to just mock its sacredness. So now the devil hates Latin, particularly church Latin. So it's a specific form of Latin that the church uses, throughout all ages. So it's not the so-called classical Latin, but it's called the church Latin, ecclesiastical Latin, because it is the language of the church. So the devil hates it. The church adopted Latin as an official language as an indication that her doctrine, like our Lord, is immutable, is unchangeable, and so that's why we use Latin in our mass. It's a church, it's an official language of the church, because God is unchangeable, and so therefore the language should not be should be a dead language, not a living language. So the use of Latin, as Pope Pius the 12th, one time he said, that it is a beautiful sign of unity, as well as an effective antidote for any corruption of doctrinal truth. And so that's why we use Latin. So if you use English words, perhaps the ideas will change over time. But you use a sacred language, like Latin, there is never change. You see. So and then Latin used to be called the language of the angels. So and I think it is related. How come the devil actually hates Latin? Because they hate the good angels. So anything related to them they hate. So and it is more effective to use So the exorcists, they mentioned that it is more effective to use church Latin, during exorcism. So, and Father Amor, for example, and other exorcists, they all agree with uh, observation. So so in the New Rite, as far as I know, there is an English translation published in 2017. So it is a translation of the New Latin version in 1999, I think. So I'm not sure whether this book is actually very commonly used, but not sure. But whether but a lot of Latinists or even exorcists, they mentioned that they would never use this this book for exorcism. So whether the and so that whether the rite has been translated into other languages is another question. So, I have never seen exorcism, for example, exorcism rites in Chinese, for example. So there's no such thing. So I don't know what book they use. So now I know some of you may wonder, about people speaking in tongues, like the apostles, the saints, such as many saints, they have this gift given by God, have this gift to speak in tongues. So they speak in different languages. Okay, so it's like Saint Francis Xavier, when he went to Japan, when he went to India, so he spoke the dialects of the people. So as I mentioned, in a sermon in the past, speaking in tongues is a special charismatic gift given to a very small number of people, not everyone. It's only for a very small amount of people, mainly to build up the church and to aid in evangelization. Once the church is established, so this gift is no longer necessary. So today today, however, this most of these speaking in tongues, think these incidents, they are not actually these people. They are not actually speaking in languages. They are just mumbling sounds that someone else has to interpret. So they're just mumbling some words or sounds, and then the other people, they will interpret what this person is saying. But this can be very dangerous. Sometimes it stems from pride, and other times it could even be a form just from a demonic influence, because demons, they want to disrupt reason or an order. And so if someone is doing some unreasonable things, like speaking in tongue, like not reasonable, not human languages, it's just mumbling some sounds, just acts unreasonably. Or some people, they ask us to do something so silly. We need to be cautious. We need to just say no to it. So and in general, as a general rule, we never seek the gift for ourselves. We never this because this gift is not for ourselves. It is originally is to build up the church. So when Saint Francis Xavier, he went to Japan, when he needed to build up the church there, God gave him this gift. But after that church was established, never had this gift never given to anybody. Even his disciples, they went to Japan after that, never got this gifts. So that's why we have to be very cautious. Saint Paul actually reminds us, so he said that if if anyone speaks in the tongues of men or angels but have no charity, then the person is nothing. So we have to really to remind ourselves not to not to let other people to know, not to seek, not to ask, not to work for this so-called charismatic gifts, but only for charity. Charity that is more important. Now, exorcists, they warn that speaking a foreign language alone is not enough to declare someone possessed. Yes, it is a very strong sign. If a person just starts speaking in foreign languages or different language or languages, is a strong sign. But it must be considered with other preternatural signs also. Now, so the second preternatural sign of possession is called occult knowledge, which is when a demon, when a demon reveals information that a human could not possibly know naturally. So this can include, for example, hidden things, future things, distant happenings, or knowledge far beyond the person's education, etc. For example, so in cases that a person may immediately recognize which objects in a room are blessed, and such as holy water, relics, or sacramentals, even if they have never studied or seen them before. They just know for some reason. So obviously they're not guessing, but they know that this object is blessed. This object is the relic is actually hidden, in the cupboard, things like that. They know. Or at times, a possessed person will refuse to sit on a chair where a hidden religious medals lies, or so without any visible signs of it. So in some rare cases, so demons can also reveal hidden sins or crimes, including those of people present, just to distract them or to unsettle the exorcist. So it can be frightening, if the and then the demons that try to just reveal the hidden sins, the crimes, things like that. and so such abilities go beyond normal human capacities, and therefore they are considered as preternatural. Demons, they cannot know the future with absolute certainty, because only God knows. Only that belongs to God alone. That knowledge belongs to God alone. God knows everything, but demons, they don't know everything. As we talked about that before. So, however, so they are highly intelligent, and they have long experience. So they have experienced more than any one of us combined together. And so they can often predict likely outcomes by understanding present causes, habits, and circumstances. They can predict. So, for example, they might accurately suggest, that someone is at risk of illness or misfortune. They may also try to frighten the exorcist with threats of death or harm they would experience. Although such predictions often they are false, but they sometimes they just to frighten people. So demons, they may reveal events occurring far away or in the past. So often these revelations are meant to distract or to delay the exorcism. So, for example, a demon may recount the details of an incident in another city, so drawing attention away from the liberation process. And occasionally, such knowledge is helpful, like when a demon is empowered by occult practitioners elsewhere, allowing the exorcist to counteract it with prayer. But this is often is a distraction. It's a the techniques is trying to distract the exorcist, so to just to give him some information, but it's to distract his mind. So the next sign, it involves knowledge that far exceeds the person's natural abilities. So which may, what is that? So for example, sometimes a possessed person may suddenly speak in theology in a very have knowledge, expertly, in theology or in philosophy or in science or literature, and recite entire passages, from books they have never read. So they may even make subtle distinctions that go beyond their education's background. So exorcists, they warn that such displays are often meant just to feed curiosity and to draw attention, perhaps just to show off, or just to distract the exorcists, from the true goal, which is liberation. And so as a rule, so as a general rule, the exorcists, they take care to prevent the demon from speaking about anything unnecessarily in the sessions. So they would not ask weird questions. They would not. The questions they ask is always, it's not something that's trivial. The questions they ask, it has to be serious. Just for deliberation. It's not to ask them to reveal more other things. It's for curiosity. It's not like that. So the questions they ask is skilled. It's not something that is just for curiosity's sake. So they try to, so they not try not to talk to the demons a lot. So they often they try to speak when it is necessary, but don't respond when it is not necessary, because once you respond, you are actually, the demons can manipulate you, you see, because they are very smart and they can deceive you. And so they try not, and they try not to listen to the demons, so especially those unnecessary information they provide. Normally the exorcists, they try not to listen. They just don't bother this. So the next sign is called morphing. Now, morphing is one of the most frequently observed signs of demonic possession during exorcism. So even in movies, I suppose, basically, it involves physical changes in human body that go beyond natural possibilities. So in other words, for example, just altering the appearance in ways ordinary humans can never achieve. So not every case is extreme, like in the scary movies, but sometimes it's mild alterations, such as changes in facial expression or the skin color, things like that. So indicate the presence of power acting outside the law of nature. So exorcists, they mentioned that the most common forms of morphing it occurred in the face and in the body. So when a possessed person's facial features may twist or become grotesque, sometimes even unrecognizable. So perhaps the stomach may swell unnaturally, or like a pregnant woman, or other times sudden changes like swelling the head and neck, or and some blisters on the tongue, etc. Those are the signs that suggest a spiritual cause rather than just medical cause also. So it has to be a sudden, there's sudden change. It's not grows over time. Grows over time, you have to see a doctor. But if it's sudden change, suddenly the person becomes like that. Well, it can be. And morphing also affects the limbs and the extremities. So the arms, the legs, the fingers, the hands, so may stretch or contort as if made of rubber. Just like those contortionists, I think the contortionists, so they are scary, really. I think some individuals perhaps move like animals, like crawling or walking, jumping like cats, or slithering like snakes, or those kind of things. So, and their voices also may also change, so becoming really screeching, metallic, all these unnatural sounds. They also so highlighting this unnatural impression. And in addition, so possessed people, they may enter this sleep-like trances or expression shift. So with faces taking on masks of rage, terror, or this grotesque deformation. So they can it happen. It's very frightening. So I don't want to be so detailed, really. So that there's some things that happen. So the eyes will roll back and forth, things like that. So that it's very frightening. So skin manifestations are also another aspect of morphing. So the exorcist mentioned. So what does it mean? Which means that sometimes they will have symbols, writings, or patterns may appear and vanish suddenly on their body, and often tied to demonic or occult influence. So the skin may ripple, as if something moves underneath it, or complexions can change instantly to unnatural shades like the different color, change to different colors, like black or gray, things like that. So they are not natural, so it's not natural, it's not from a natural cause, so they're not drunk, they're not embarrassed, they are not just exposed to the sun for a long time, but they change the color to red. So some now exorcists, they explain that the demons can make a body seem to change in four main ways. So they said that the demons can change the body by directly moving the muscles or skin, or they can do it by instantly altering body chemistry, like the temperatures, the color, etc., or by tricking people's senses so that they see things that are not real. Or the last way is by creating illusions, such as these animal-like shapes, through light or air manipulation. So these are usually appearances, not true physical transformations. Now, the other sign, the other sign of possession is unnatural strength. So it's a supernatural. So it's called superhuman strength. So for example, you have a small child may just throw an adult across the room, or a weak elderly lady, may just fight with several strong men. Those are superhuman strength they have. So sometimes people can show unusual strength in emergencies, which is, it happens. For example, sometimes you have seen that perhaps a mother lifting a car, to save her child, or things like that. But this happens only in extreme cases. It's only happened once. It doesn't happen often. But in possession, it's different. The possession, the strength happens again and again with no natural cause, and usually comes with other strange signs like speaking unknown languages, or reacting violently to holy objects, those kind of things. Another striking sign of demonic possession is the appearance of objects like it's called fortuna. The fortuna is fortune, it's a fortune, it's a fortune, but it's fortuna. Fortuna, they are strange objects. Basically, they are strange objects. So, like, for example, nails, glass, hair, ropes, all these weird things that sometimes come out of possessed people's during exorcism. So they are not the things the person swallowed. And medical scans, or all these X-rays, CT scans, MRI scans, all these things, they typically they cannot detect these objects beforehand, and they appeared without causing normal injuries, even when they are sharp. So exorcists, they believe that these objects are linked to curses or occult rituals, showing that the demon's influence over the material world. Levitation is one of the rarest but most dramatic signs of possession. So it happens when a person is lifted in the air in a way that goes against the laws of nature. So it can show up in different ways. For example, the person may just rise a few centimeters or a meter, above the ground. Or sometimes a person can walk on walls or ceilings, things like that, or move across a room without help, or be suddenly thrown into the air and dropped. So levitation is never constant, but appears at instant, intense moments. So usually during prayers, during exorcisms, so it can happen. So it's a clear sign, but obviously this is a clear sign that natural explanation is impossible, if that happens. Although some people may wonder, about the difference between the levitation caused by demons and the experience of the saints, the mystics, because and we know that some saints, some mystics, they also levitated during their lifetime. So the famous story would be Saint Joseph of Cupertino, who is famous for being lifted into the air, during prayers and ecstasy. So distinction is actually is in the context and what accompanies it. So we know that mystical levitation happens in prayers, happens in devotions and union with God. So it is received as a gift of grace. It's a and it produce good effects. The demonic levitations, on the other hand, actually is different. Because it occurs when violence, blasphemy, hatred of holy things, and other clear signs of possession. So, and this is the difference. So the sense that what they experience and what the possessed person experience, they're different, obviously. But besides humans, superhuman strength or levitation, so the exorcists, they also seen other strength signs that go beyond normal human capacity. For example, sometimes it's this unnatural posture. So that is to say, when a person can hold these painful or impossible positions for a long time, or do delicate tasks with like writing or threading a needle with eyes closed. All these kind of things is hard. So it's beyond human capacity. Or a person is going a week or even more, even a couple months, without eating or drinking, and yet still staying healthy. Or the person has become too heavy to move, because their body is like locked down like that. As it's locked down like that. It's too heavy to lift up. And so those kind of things is obviously it can be also a secondary sign for possession. So again, they are not the main signs of possession, so they're secondary signs. But when they appear alongside the key markers, those the primary signs, then they give more evidence that possession may be present. So a secondary sign again is a sign suggests possession, but it's not strong. It's not strong enough on its own to prove it. So unlike primary signs, primary signs they are enough. You see the primary signs, definitely it's a possession. But the secondary signs they are more common. They are less certain. So they often show up first in real cases, giving the exorcists the clues that something might be wrong, that they have to investigate more. So the secondary signs perhaps the secondary signs cannot the secondary signs alone cannot confirm possession, unless at least one primary sign is also present. So which means that we don't see a person who is practicing some exercise, just putting her legs on the shoulders, and then you think that the person is possessed, or a person's face turned red after drinking. You think, he must be possessed, so call the priest right away. Don't do that, So it's the secondary signs that alone cannot confirm possession, So they need to have the primary signs to also to attach to it. Now, the classical examples of secondary signs are aversion to the sacred. So basically, it's when they see some holy objects, they are scared. They are just hated. They are just this hostility, this uncontrollable hostility towards these holy objects, such as crucifixes, holy water, prayers, relics, Eucharist, that kind of things. So this reaction is extreme, is irrational, it go beyond, far beyond ordinary dislike. So it can appear as fear, rage, disgust, whatever, and even physical pain, when exposed to the sacred. So, for example, one time I remember that there was a lady, just saw the Eucharist, and then she was just enraged. Suddenly, suddenly was enraged. So later found out that the person. So it is secondary sign. So it's not. It maybe it's from demons, but at the same time might be the person is crazy. Just because the person maybe is has mental illness. So we don't know. So but this is a secondary sign. When they see these objects, they're scared of it. So they, for example, they scream at Our Lady's or our Lord's name, or they have these burning sensations when the priest sprinkle holy water, or they choke when they receive Holy Communion, or things like that. Those can be, but the afflicted often feel shock afterward, showing that the reaction was not truly their will. So they could not even foresee the reaction. And so it can be from the demonic cause. So the other thing is a strong desire to destroy holy things. So the person may blaspheme, may desecrate holy objects, may invert religious symbols in obscene or perverse ways. And again, these secondary signs are warning signals, especially aversion to holy things. I think many people nowadays, think that this is a primary sign. When if say they have a medal, or they have something holy, they're saying that, or if the person just reject it, they're demonic. But this is actually a secondary sign. So in other words, yes, there is something we have to pay attention here, but they only gain real weight when confirmed by primary signs. So and this is, and I think nowadays, especially nowadays, hatred of holy things is quite common, in our time, especially. So not necessarily being possessed by. Now, so and so lastly, I want to talk just, so possession is painful. People, so may think that, well, how come they may sometimes ask God, why you allow these possessions, why you allow the demons to possess the people. So we have to understand that God allows this is not just to chastise people or to punish them, but we have to understand God allows possession is for a greater purpose. So not out of cruelty, because from His perspective, especially when the deliverance process is successful, it actually demonstrates His power, His providence, and the victory of Christ over demons. So highlighting the authority of the church, and perhaps even for the possessed person. So the struggle can purify the soul, strengthening the faith, patience, virtues, to increase the patience, virtues, things like that. And so even prepare them to help others spiritually. So a lot of people, they have been possessed, but after they are free and they help other people, they are involved in this deliverance ministries. Or regarding demons now, so possession exposes their weakness and so reveals their limits, and ultimately shows that the devil is always under God's control. So we see in all these ways, so that even darkness or possession, they become a testimony of God's glory, God's mercy, God's triumph over demons. So, and this is really important. So yes, today, so we see the possession may be very powerful, and it's very scary. So I didn't even want to talk about some detailed things because they are so scary. But we have to understand that God's power is far greater. It's far greater. And I hope this is the message that we learn, throughout all these lessons. So today and before all these lessons, we should come to understand this more clearly. That this is important. God's power is far greater. So we when we are we are influenced by the devil. We have to go to Him. So this would help us to recognize God's will, and to learn not to lose hope in our spiritual life. So even in the face of evil. So anyway, so perhaps we'll just stop here. I think it's time already, because so we have run out of time. So next time, so I will just simply explain the stages of deliverance. So the process, especially the process involved in exorcism. So normally there are a couple stages. So the exorcists, they will go through these stages before they actually perform exorcism, right? The rite of exorcism. So then we'll discuss the next extraordinary demonic influence. It's called demonic subjugation. Subjugation. So subjugation is when a person knowingly makes a pact with the devil. or a demon. So submitting themselves to its authority. So these agreements, often they begin with just promises of power or success or fame, but then it eventually, ultimately, lead to destruction. So, in history, actually, we call some famous people, said to have entered such agreements with the devil. So at the end, they keep repeating actions to maintain their worldly status, but not so much we hear of very often, but there are some cases happen. So it happens especially to some famous people. And this is so we will talk about this subject next time, in more details. Okay, so if you have questions, you stay behind, and then we will discuss the questions. If not, then we will say a prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. So I'll give you a blessing. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti descendat super, vox et mane a semper. Amen. All right.